Listen, you want to be here watching Guns N' Roses?
Hey everybody, what's going on, and welcome to GNR Central. And in today's video I want to talk about how Guns N' Roses ended up opening for Aerosmith, and how Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses had kind of been circling each other for about a year or two until they finally were able to go on tour together in 1988. So there was a really great interview done with Guns N' Roses back just before they released GNR Lies in Rolling Stone. It was titled The Hard Truth About Guns N' Roses, and they basically interviewed the band during the time they were opening for Aerosmith. And this is when we started to really see Guns N' Roses break big. If you've seen a lot of the interviews the guys have done over the years, they said that even though they opened for Aerosmith, a lot of the kids were really coming to the shows to see Guns N' Roses, who were just about to hit their meteoric rise. Now, Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith have a bit of history before they even began touring together. So Aerosmith's manager, Tim Collins, at one point was offered the job to manage Guns N' Roses, but he basically turned them down. So Tom Zutaut, who was working for Geffen at the time and was the guy who discovered Guns N' Roses, invited Tim Collins, who was Aerosmith's manager, to see the Gunners play in LA. So when the band members came back to his hotel room, Collins checked himself into a second room to get some rest. In the morning, he learned that the band had ordered $450 worth of drinks and food on his bill, and it was after that event that he decided not to manage the band. Now, that wasn't the only connection that the guys from Aerosmith had with Guns N' Roses. As Slash put it, the guys had met years before. Slash said our guys were selling drugs to their guys. So the Aerosmith Guns N' Roses bill was a great success, drawing at least two generations of rock fans, and the tour concentrated mostly on outdoor sheds, mini stadiums that seated about 15,000 people, and it's here that Gunners found their audience. So according to the article, the sheds are set out in the suburbs where the kids can't damage too much property, and for a couple of hours the only supervision is the security guards, who have nice haircuts and thick arms. You can get a big warm Flatliner Miller Lite for $3.75 if you have proof that you're over 21, or if one of your feet touches the ground. Now, the guys in the audience wear black t-shirts depicting the last band to play at the venue, and their dates were basically Kmart knockoffs of the clothing that LA models wear in music videos. Now, although Aerosmith was the headliner on the tour and was applauded enthusiastically, the kids seemed to regard the band as history, a band that they knew from the radio like the Doors or the Troggs, and their response to Guns N' Roses was much more powerful and demonstrated an unusual emotional connection both with their songs and their attitude. So Slash said the sincerity of the band shows. That's why the crowds are so violent. Not to say that I don't condone violence or riots, but it's part of the energy that we put out. At times, like in Philly, I thought I could have easily started a riot, said Axl. It's great watching them go crazy and beating one another up, but I don't want to see people get hurt. I hate to even mention anything like that, but I guess we're playing with fire, says Duff. I would seriously hate for anything to happen, but we're not the kind of guys to really change our ways. It seems that a violent incident is inevitable, the same way the Stones were destined to have an incident like Altamont. I've watched the movie Gimme Shelter probably 100 times, says Axl. Now, in a separate interview that Tim Collins gave, he said he wasn't really even into the idea of Guns N' Roses and he didn't really want to do it even before he met the band. And just like the Toxic Twins, Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, Collins had recently gotten clean, and after one look at Guns N' Roses backstage, surrounded by basically dubious characters and barely dressed young girls, he said, I immediately felt the narcotic vibe of the band and knew that I was at a serious risk of relapse if I wasn't careful. Now, Collins did say that he was really impressed by Axl, but when he finally got into the bathroom after numerous visits paid by Izzy and Slash, he also found blood on the ceiling and realized that at least one of the band was mainlining heroin. He said, frankly, I was scared of them, Collins told the American writer Stephen Davis. Soon afterwards, Tom Zutaut would end up finding another person to try to manage Guns N' Roses, and the next person after Tim Collins was, strangely enough, Iron Maiden's manager, which was another band that Guns N' Roses went on tour with in 1988. Now, their paths would cross not too long after that. Aerosmith was about to be touring Europe, and Tom Zutaut told Guns N' Roses then manager Alan Niven to keep the band out on the road, keep them working, and so when they had a chance to jump on the next Aerosmith tour, go to Europe. And it seemed like the perfect marriage of bands, and really a chance to repeat the trick of building buzz overseas that could basically use when Guns returned home. The only problem was Aerosmith would end up canceling their tour of Europe at the last minute, and according to their co-manager Tim Collins, the last straw was when Joe Perry told him he'd once bought heroin from Izzy Stradlin. So with Aerosmith's newly found sobriety only ever one drink away from cracking, and the band finally achieving all of the commercial success that their habits had denied them for a decade, he wasn't taking any chances. And meanwhile, the band's new album Permanent Vacation had come out at the end of August and looked to be their first major hit since the 70s, and the European dates were scrapped in favor of a gargantuan American tour now slated to begin in New York on October 16th. So keep in mind, guys, this was around the summer of 1987. So Appetite had just come out and panic was starting to set in the Guns N' Roses camp. So it would take weeks for their then manager Alan Niven to find another major tour for GNR to piggyback on. And with MTV not playing them and no radio interest to help fill the void, he feared the album would be dead in the water by the time the band got busy again. So the band was able to schedule several shows in the UK. The only thing is they just needed one more thing, which was another band with similar appeal to help fill out those venues. So once again, they were able to get Faster Pussycat on the bill, and it was a shrewd choice given that they were basically being talked of with the same excitement that Guns N' Roses were in the UK rock press. So Alan Niven said it worked pretty good because it was just Faster Pussycat. What threat were they? Except that when we got to Germany, it became very apparent to me that the record company thought Faster Pussycat's manager, Warren Etna, was the shit. And it took the Germans ages for them to come off their effing high horse and do something with Appetite. And that was the only serious glitch. Now let's fast forward to 1988. How did Guns N' Roses, going from being a band that was feared by Aerosmith's management, end up opening for the band? So 1988 would be a huge year for Guns N' Roses. Now for the band members, it was the moment that their dreams of rock stardom really became an inescapable reality. So by August of 1988, Appetite for Destruction, which was led by the single Sweet Child of Mine, topped the Billboard charts for the first time, and it would only return a further 3 occasions in the future. And it was the first of 3 solid years where it would be on the top 200 charts for 147 weeks. So the band was now on tour with Aerosmith, and their manager Tim Collins had negotiated entirely separate travel arrangements and accommodations for both acts. Now, come time for Guns N' Roses to open for Aerosmith, there was just one small snag, and that was that the 5 members of Aerosmith had now been on the wagon and been sober for about 2 years, while the 5 members of Guns N' Roses didn't actually appear to know what a wagon was. Now, there was one request that they had to work out between both of the bands, and that was that nobody from the GNR camp, including most of all the band members themselves, would be allowed to be seen drinking or, God forbid, doing drugs anywhere on tour where the Aerosmith entourage might be within sight. Or as Alan Niven put it, chuckling darkly, they had turned Aerosmith into candy asses. There's restrictions about who could come backstage, what they can drink, and they took out Guns N' Roses as support. So in order to convince Aerosmith's manager, Tim Collins, that the guys from Aerosmith will not be corrupted and fall off the wagon because of the guys from Guns N' Roses, he came up with an idea that made him basically laugh even more. To bond with Tim and try to reassure him that all will be well on tour and that his boys won't be corrupted, Alan took his gun, basically took Tim Collins to his gun club. He said, I pull out my .44 Magnum and I say, try this. You'll find it empowering. He took one shot with my .44, dropped it, and stumbled back about 4 paces. Eventually, he got a little more comfortable, enough to shoot my .25 Beretta that I used to keep in my pocket. So he's shooting my little gun, and he's comfortable with that. Alan had deliberately decided not to give Tim the little gun and allow him to work his way up. I put the .44 Magnum in his hand. You want a little bit of symbolism? You got to F with us. We're Guns and F and Roses. He laughs. It's no wonder people have negative things to say about me. I must have been a total shit. But if Niven thought his problems were over, he was sorely mistaken. He said, so I got to the Aerosmith tour. Everybody's happy except Axl. As the first date in Chicago in July came closer, Axl locked himself in his apartment and wouldn't communicate with anybody. In desperation, Niven told Izzy to go there and talk Axl down. Get him to come, it's going to be good, it's going to be cool. Izzy did as his manager asked, but when he got there, Axl wouldn't even let him in. They tried talking through the door and basically it wouldn't work. Izzy came back and reported that to me. He's locked up in the bedroom and he won't come to the door. Alan asked if there's any way Izzy could come talk to Axl in his bedroom, and Izzy said, well, there's a tree outside his effing bedroom window. Niven looked at him and said, go climb the effing tree and talk to him. So Izzy goes off, he climbs the tree, and there's Izzy hanging in the tree going, come on, dude, it's Aerosmith, it's going to be cool, let's go, we all got to go. And Axl's like, F off, I don't want to do it, true story. Now, Alan Niven came up with a genius idea that could have also cost him a lot of money. So what he decided to do was leave Axl alone, not even really buy him a plane ticket to Chicago to start the tour, and basically just leave a message on his answering machine saying that we're going and that they would be there and he could come join us if he wanted to, but it was up to Axl to sort things out. Now, Alan Niven admitted he had no effing idea if Axl would call his bluff. The stress, he says, was mountainous. But Axl did arrive on the morning of the show, and Alan Niven was sitting eating breakfast at the hotel when he heard the clank of Axl's jewelry. He comes marching in his shorts and his 48 pounds of jewelry on him. So anonymous, so discreet, and he looks at me, and I swear to God, it looks could kill. I would have been vaporized, but he was there. Axl didn't say a word. He just glared at Niven. Then he went to the far side of the room and sat at the table. Then one or two people went to sit with him. Then he announced he would not go on stage if I was there and I had to leave. As a result, Niven was not there for the first 3 weeks of the Aerosmith tour. Now, fast forward almost 30 years, and Steven Tyler and Guns N' Roses are brought up in the same sentence. So it was around the time that the reunion tour was announced, and Steven Tyler claimed some responsibility for helping reunite Guns N' Roses. Here's what he had to tell Howard Stern back in 2016 about the reunion.
The Howard Stern Show.
Are you the guy responsible for getting Slash and Axl talking again and back into the band Guns N' Roses? Wow. Are you behind that or not?
I'm sure I'm not solely, but right. I did meet Axl in a couple of clubs a year ago and 2 years ago and 3 years ago. And I bump into him and I had that talk and he had his words.
What did you say to Axl?
I said, you need to get the fucking back together again soon because we all miss you. Same thing someone said to me when Joe and I were fighting. You got to get back together. What, are you crazy? In fact, it was John Bon Jovi. Right. I'm in rehab.
Oh, is that right?
He calls me up and goes, the fuck are you doing in rehab? The world needs you. Dude, we're out here ripping it up and everybody's asking for Aerosmith.
John Bon Jovi did that.
He did that.
Isn't that great?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you know him that well, John?
He used to sweep the floor when we were doing Sweet Emotion, and his uncle, Tony Bon Jovi, was working.
Right.
So John, would clean up the studios and stuff, but
when John was young,
yeah,
and he was at that stage where he was sweeping up at, what was it, the Hit Factory or something? I don't know where it was.
Record plant.
Okay, record plant. So in other words, did you develop a friendship with him? Where you were nice to the kid who was sweeping up, kind of thing?
I was nice to the kid. I knew his uncle because he produced something with us. He did something with us.
Right. And so he calls you up. You're in rehab. You're at a low point in your life. And he says, hey, get the fuck out of rehab and let's get going.
What the fuck are you doing then, those words?
That's
what are you
fantastic.
Doing? You need to get out of here because people in the world need you. So I'd say to Axl, you got to get together. There's a place in time where if you don't, you're going to miss it.
That's right.
In another 4 or 5 years, no one's going to even know who they were or care if they're on tour. And that's Steven Tyler's opinion.
Right.
So I'm the lead singer of another great band.
Right.
So I have a right to feel that way. I have such a huge ego about keeping the fire and the music together because if people come up to me and say, dude, I got laid to your music, or a woman comes up and say, we got married to your songs, you had something to do with the fabric of people. Guns N' Roses had something to do with the fabric of humans on this planet.
Absolutely.
So I get fucking pissed. And I know,
Slash, you met.
Slash
did you meet him at the birthday show?
All the time.
But when you performed so generously at my birthday show, you did a thing with Slash.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you guys met?
No. I've done hundreds of things with him.
Oh, you've known him.
I love him to death. I call him all the time. I
right.
bust his chops. He busts mine.
And Slash, I feel, really is reasonable. He would want to get together with Axl. Axl do you understand why Axl was pissed at
I
Slash?
get the whole thing.
Why was he pissed?
I can't talk about it.
It's that personal.
Yeah.
Does it sound like an Aerosmith kind of thing?
No, it's a little deeper.
Deeper than that?
Yeah, it is.
Somebody fucked somebody's wife?
No, but the point is they're talking to each other. They got an offer for something, and at least they're going out. I think, Pete, the world needs to hear their music. End of story.
Do you think it will last, or is it very volatile? You've been in that position where it's so volatile between a band, and especially contentious between...
I can only hope
that
Axl sees that the greater picture is to not be angry at, Duff or Axl.
Yes.
Or Slash. Axl to understand that he's the lead singer in a great band. And, and the world wants to see Axl with the original band. They love him alone, too. He's the shit alone. He's fucking great.
Can I ask you a question?
Axl's great.
So that does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know your thoughts on the comment section below. Did you guys see Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses on tour in 1988? And what was your impression of that show? Let me know in the comment section. And be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And go check us out at gnrcentral.com. Take care.
Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, and you're watching GNR Central. Yeah! Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, and you're watching GNR Central. Yeah!